When it comes to celebrity life, the one thing that everyone likes to point out is how celebrities are rich and are able to go and get everything they desire, within reason of course. But the sad fact about celebrity life is that while many celebrities are smart with their money and are able to go and spend it wisely, others aren't so smart. Yes, there are many tales about how celebs go and get themselves broke because they overreach, don't pay taxes, go to jail, and so on. So, with all that being said, allow us to show you 11 celebs you had no idea went broke. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. 11. Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes, in many ways, is an example of how not to handle your money. Because he was a man on a mission when he was in Hollywood, and he was doing great, until he let it all fall apart by his own hand. Not the least of which is owing $12 million to the IRS and just not paying it due to wanting to have fun. No, really, that's how it went down. Take note, even comic villains are scared of the IRS. Just ask the Joker. Snipes served his time for tax evasion up until 2013, and since then has only starred in one really notable action flick, Expendables 3, and one TV series that flopped pretty hard. He's tried to do more, but Hollywood is pretty wary of him, and that's not hard to understand given rumors of his diva attitude. And while he'll be the first to tell you that he's got things on the horizon, you can bet it's not as big as he's saying. 10. Toni Braxton. Despite her awesome voice and decent run of success, Toni Braxton really overestimated her own fame. She continued to spend, even when the royalties on her songs started to trickle in and then finally dry up. This led to 2 bankruptcies in less than 5 years, which is sad no matter how you look at it. Rumor has it she was still allowed to purchase a $3 million home while she was still $50 million in debt. What is it with celebrities and not realizing that being in debt or owing money to people is a bad thing? And trust us, there are many more stories like hers out there, especially in the music industry, like with number 9, Meat Loaf. Meat Loaf's problem in terms of money came in regards to giving the proper credit to the guy that helped him out with I Would Do Anything for Love. The co-writer sued Meat Loaf and nearly bankrupted him in the 1980s. From that point on, the singer wrote all of his own material and has since made an impressive comeback. Which is why songwriters nowadays are very careful to not make similar mistakes, because these kinds of cases can be costly. 8. Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds was one of the biggest actors in all of Hollywood, and for very good reasons. He had the looks and the talent to sell tickets. So much so that he had a very long and luxurious career, in which he was doing big-name TV and movie roles, as well as just being an icon of manliness that couldn't be denied. Especially during his Smokey and the Bandit days. The problem though was that while he was spending money, he wasn't really making it, and thus he had a lot of debt to pay off. It got so bad that he had to go and sell off various memorabilia that he had from films that he was in, just so he could pay it off. While he eventually was able to live the life he wanted without debt, there was a time when he did whatever he could just to get by. 7. Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s was one of the biggest actors in Hollywood. From The Rock, Con Air, National Treasure, and even Ghost Rider, the first one, not the second one. He was doing really well. He was even almost Superman one time before things fell through. Look it up, it's an interesting tale. The problem though was that while Nicolas Cage definitely had money to burn, he burned through it really quickly. From buying a lot of houses, to a grave in New Orleans, no kidding, to $1 million comic books of Superman, ironically enough. Cage burned through a lot of money in no time flat. If you've wondered why Nicolas Cage takes just about any role he's offered in terms of movies or TV shows, this is why. He's still indebted, and since Hollywood in the larger tiers sees him as a bit of a joke, he'll go and do any role given to him. Like that Five Nights at Freddy's movie that was, something. 6. Larry King. Larry King died recently, and it's still very much something that the world is mourning, and they're still celebrating the great life he had. But there was a major point in his life where he was very much broke, and not for the reasons you might be thinking. You see, he got into a lot of marriages, and just as many divorces. As any divorced person will tell you, alimony sucks. What's more, in the late 1970s, Larry King had a lot of alimony payments to make, and even when he got his legendary TV show, it didn't help him stem the tide. For a while, he was basically penniless. Thankfully, he pulled himself out, but it wasn't easy one bit. 5. Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman made his name on the show Different Strokes, which ran for a long time, and if you looked at him during the show, you'd think he was a child star who was happy and ready to talk about the world. But behind the scenes, he was miserable. He noted later in life that he was working long hours despite being a kid, and his adoptive parents and agents were taking large chunks of the money that he had earned. He struggled with depression. He sued his adoptive parents for money because of what they did to him as a kid, something many child stars have done, to be honest. And even though he won, he went bankrupt less than a decade later. As if that wasn't enough, he struggled with drugs, had a messy and public divorce, had issues with other jobs, and was basically doing any kind of role he could get because he was so poor, even parodying himself at times. In the end, he died at the age of 42, and his life was very much a tragedy of the Hollywood world. 4. Wayne Newton. Anyone who knew Las Vegas in recent decades knows that Wayne Newton was one of the biggest stars around. People would go to Vegas to see Newton because of his vocal talent. However, Wayne Newton got a little too over on its own grandeur, and thus Wayne could spend lots of the money he made to live a luxurious lifestyle, to the extent that he had $20 million in debts from his spending and his plastic surgery costs to keep him looking good and doing shows. Not exactly a good life, if you ask us. 3. Erin Moran. Erin Moran was an actress who played Joni on the mega hit show Happy Days. She was on the show from day one and had one of the biggest arcs of the whole show, arguably, when she got hitched to Chachi. After Happy Days ended, Erin Moran bounced around from show to show, even doing a brief Happy Days spin-off with Chachi's actor Scott Baio. Eventually though, she dropped off the face of the earth, got married, and went broke. Eventually, she ended up in a trailer park, and her fame became infamy to the extent that she would do cameos on shows just to get money, and she admitted to that without so much as hesitation. She died in 2017 at the age of 57. 2. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney, in many ways, was a Hollywood treasure, and he had not only a great childhood career, but one that lasted all the way to his dying days. But in the 1960s, he had gone and gotten himself into a great deal of debt and had to file for bankruptcy. He then spent much of his career trying to get out of the hole that he'd gotten himself into. Like others on this list, he did make it out of that hole, and for him, acting was a joy, so that didn't bother him to do a lot of roles to get the money to work his way out of debt. 1. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson wasn't the best guy ever when it came to spending money, to the extent that his infamous Neverland Ranch cost around $10 million to operate per year. Plus, his various surgeries were ones that drained his bank account a great deal. By the time of his passing, he was basically broke, and that was just the start of his post-living woes, as the other tales about him started to come out and painted him as a very dark and troubled man. So, what do you think? What do you think of this look at the celebrities who had it all in some ways and yet went broke because they weren't smart with their money? Does it surprise you to hear some of the big names on the list? Do you think that some of these celebs had very easy ways to get out of their situation but just didn't take the opportunities presented? Do you know of other celebrities who should be on this list due to their financial situation? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.